Hello, and welcome once again to the Dental Marketing Mastery Series. This podcast is brought to you by dentalwebcontent.com and New Patients Incorporated. I'm Howie Horrocks, the founder of New Patients Incorporated. Along with me once again is my friend and partner and the president of New Patients Incorporated, Mark Dilatush.
Well, everybody, we have a special guest for this podcast, and first, I want to thank everyone. It's really amazing. We have thousands of people listening to our podcasts, and I don't know, Josh, what was it, back in May or June, Josh had said, hey, let's start a podcast series. And of course, Howie and I said, all right, what do we got to do? And so anyway, thank you very much to the people who are listening, taking their time to listen to these podcasts at work or at the gym or wherever you listen to them. So today we have a special guest. His name is Keith English. Keith is the CEO of a company called LocalMed. And we have a product called NPI Concierge, which is powered by LocalMed, Keith's company. And it's a technology platform that I thought it would be real interesting for dentists to hear the backstory of Keith and his company, how long it takes to build a technology product and test it out and who he's tested it with, and basically just give everyone an overview of what it's like to be the leader in online scheduling, even though, and Keith will tell you, even though when you say online scheduling to a group of dentists, they almost all of them try to run out of the room as fast as they can. So, Keith, say hello to everybody.
Hello, everybody, and thank you very much for taking a few minutes here with me to walk through some of this stuff and explain what we're doing.
Good deal. All right, so Keith, you started this whole thing. And you were a successful technology entrepreneur. This isn't your first project, right?
No, it's not. Unfortunately, it's probably my fifth, of which one of the previous ones actually worked. But that's kind of the life of a technology entrepreneur: is what you think are great ideas don't always turn into great ideas. And so the first few that I attempted did not. Shall we say, gain any traction.
Right. Well, yeah, I think it's right in line with our business too. I mean, I tell everybody we get the largest library of crap that doesn't work, right? If you want access to it, we'll share it. But I mean, yeah, lots of stuff that we've tried hasn't worked out, but the persistence and perseverance is the
100%.
Yeah.
100%. And it was, I've certainly learned a lot more from the things that did not go right than the things that have gone right. The first few businesses that I started when I was first getting into the business world have certainly shaped the few that I've started since then that have found traction and have been a little bit more successful. The lessons that we learned on not just the technology side, but also how to interact with people, interact with customers, how to treat customers when things don't go right, and how to make sure that we are providing those services in a way that makes sense for everybody, are certainly valuable lessons that we learned along the way.
Yeah, sure. Lessons. Yeah, everybody learns those along the way. It's funny what's in your mind's eye when you think of something and how different reality is.
Oh,
yeah.
No question. I mean,
Right.
You end up, what you think will be important to people is many times not as important as it seems to be, or vice versa. Something that you believe is tangential or not as consequential turns out to be the core of what you do.
Right.
And that's, you have to be very diligent in listening to your clients and your customers and your folks you're dealing with to make sure that you're providing the things that they find are relevant to their business. And that's been really important for us as we've developed this particular product out.
Yeah, which now what brought you, well, let me back up one step. I'm going to tell everybody listening to this podcast, because basically it's my podcast. I can do whatever the hell I want. That there's really one entity doing real online scheduling, real-time online scheduling, which doesn't create the headaches that you hear from online scheduling outlets. So let me just say that, and then let me back up and say, Keith, how did you begin? Why were you so hell-bent on creating the first online real-time scheduling integration for dentistry? Like, where did that come from?
So I was introduced after I sold my previous business to a private equity firm. I was introduced to a pair of twins and then one of their friends. And one of the twins had cancer at a young age and was unable, he was since in remission after I met him, but he was unable to kind of keep up with everything that entailed him kind of managing his medical life. And they had a very broad and general concept around something that they wanted to build. And I got to talking to them and realized that in general, it had some merit to what they were thinking, but they needed to really refine their vision a little bit more to focus and not have such a huge project on their plate to start with.
Right.
So as we got to looking into it and looking around, and my background is transactional technology. It's connecting two parties that otherwise would not have found each other or would have had difficulty in completing a transaction of some sort. And as I got to talking to them and looking through the marketplace, we realized that there was nothing in particularly the dental market and ultimately the larger medical market that really allowed patients the ability to connect with their providers in any sort of interactive way. The transactions between patients and providers and dental providers was really the same thing they'd been doing since Alexander Graham Bell came out and said, "Can you hear me?"
Right.
And it's the exact same. It's the exact same transaction that's occurred for 70, 80, as many years as the phone's been around.
Right.
While the technology to have a much more interactive experience, much more rich experience exists in pretty much every other type of business, whether it be travel, flights, banking, you name it. There's some
dining.
very
Right.
Absolutely dining is an example that we use and we've heard related to our service, but it's obviously much simpler from a dining transaction because there's not the sets of rules. But when you start to think of the headway that's made in that interaction in, say, a banking environment or a travel environment where you've got tens of thousands of variables that have to be accounted for.
Right.
Even though they're different industries, they're very relevant from the standpoint of all of the things that have to be taken into account in order to provide an accurate transaction.
Sure.
And as I got to looking around at that and talking to various people, we saw a path. It was certainly a windy and long path, but there was a path to be able to provide that service to connect patients in a better way with their providers. And so we started down that path about a little over 4.5 years ago now. And that's kind of how we started this process.
Yeah. And I'll admit to being on the, what are you crazy, side of the ledger. Because I think one of your folks called me 2 or 3 years ago and said, "Hey, what do you think about online schedule?" And my answer was, "What are you crazy?" Right.
Well, that person was me.
Oh, was it? Okay. Okay.
It was absolute. There was no other there were no other people to call at that point. I mean, there was me and the developers and Jacob, our head of operations. There wasn't anybody else reaching out to other folks at that time.
Right. You weren't there yet, right? So
no.
Right, but I'm going to bring this to the audience's attention. I go back in dentistry 27 or so years, and I remember, you're going to laugh at this probably, but I remember I think it was Chicago Midwinter trade show where we had a piece of software called SoftDent at the time. And we were the first ones to do a couple things. One of the cool things we did was print ADA forms on plain white copy paper. And the next cool thing we did is we started electronic, with our customers. We weren't the first ones to do electronic claims, but we were the first ones to really roll it out. And there's a parallel between the reaction I got 25 years ago from the dentist at the trade show booth who would walk up and say, "What do you got that's new?" And I'd say, "We do electronic insurance claims." And the doctor would stand there. They wouldn't really say anything for the first 10, 15 seconds. It would get awkward, kind of an awkward, just silence.
You saw a lot of backs.
Yeah, I know.
As they turned around and walked the other direction.
I know, and you'd hear, but where do I put the copy? How do I know they got it? Right? No, they're gonna band together and they're gonna price us out of the market. I mean, just conspiracy theory after conspiracy theory after conspiracy theory, right? So I said, yeah, but doc, it's 39 cents. It's 39 cents a claim. And the doctor would sit there a little bit longer and think, and he'd go, "Yeah, but see, with an envelope, I can put 4 claims in an envelope without getting the 44 cents. And I'm like, okay, all right, have a nice day, right? So,
right.
10, 12, 15, I mean, it's like you say, it's creating, it's connecting. It's connecting through a transactional level 2 parties. And in this case, it's actually 3 parties. It's our company, it's the dental office, and the insurance company. And in some cases, 4 parties because the patient's involved. So I totally get it. I totally get the adoption curve you guys and we, as a provider of your product, we're going through, having to talk to dentists and say, no, wait, wait, turn back around. This thing adds patients to your schedule. So I'm teaching the people here at MPI. I said, look, the first 3 things that come out of your mouth, just say it adds patients to your schedule. It adds patients to your schedule. It adds patients to your schedule. And it'll get them to focus in on how it adds patients to your schedule instead of the things that they think it's going to break. It doesn't break anything. So go through. I can tell people, look, you have rules in your practice management software that manage your schedule. You have treatment rooms, operatories, whatever you call them. You have providers, you have allocation on the appointments, you have open time, you have blocks, you have all these rules. You have hours of operation. So the platform pulls them all in and understands all that, and then you get to add your own rules on top. So this is installed in 600 offices already, so you know what the most popular additional rules are to add on top. Why don't you talk to the audience about some of the common rules that people add?
So what this all basically comes back to is whether it's the doctor or the staff, they're concerned about quote unquote losing control of their schedule, or that we are going to put patients in the wrong spot.
Right.
I mean, ultimately, all of the fear comes back to that aspect. And so we're catching a lot of the flack right now from some things that have been done in the last 10 years by other companies who frankly built things wrong or just flat out misrepresented what their product was going to do
You're talking
for
about
the
practice,
offices.
you're talking about practice management software?
Not necessarily
Or
practice
other
management
online
software, but
scheduling apps?
or companies that say they're doing scheduling, but in reality, it's just a request that is sent back to the office. And then that starts a chain reaction of communications between the practice and the patient. And at the end of that, the patient's just exasperated and quits. And it's, worst case scenario, because now they've literally lost the patient as opposed to having a shot at getting that patient. So, we're catching a lot of the flack for that. Or if somebody built something that literally caused more work at the office level or incorrect bookings. So, and when we started this project, our primary goal was to do it properly. And we didn't have any, we had 0 customers for 2.5 years when we sat here in dark rooms and headphones and stayed to ourselves and built this and sat, literally sat for days and hours and months at a time inside dental offices to understand how they use their systems, why they did things the way they did it. And fortunately had some very patient offices with us during those first few years, while we didn't technically do anything. We had to learn about why they did things the way that they did it. So, we do get a lot of the flack from people who have told them things were going to go one way and then didn't. So that being said, our system is built in such a way that we take in, as you mentioned, all of the rules that are stored within the practice management system. So there are things as benign as the office hours that are pretty simple, down to the combination of which types of appointments go to which providers, and then which provider is working in which chair during which times of which day.
Right.
Things as kind of, I won't say complex, but just things as intricate as that is. And those are all the things that are stored within the system. But then there's the second level of rules, which are the rules that are kind of, we call them the native scheduling rules, because they're native to that office. And they're generally the things that are known within the scheduling coordinator's heads, as opposed to being stored at the office level. So things such as Dr. X does not like new patients after 2 o'clock on every third Thursday that follows a snowy Wednesday, or whatever it may be, but those types of things that are in the heads of the scheduling coordinators, we have the ability to get those set up during the process as well, so that we're not only taking those kind of hard and fast rules that are controlled by the management system, but we're also taking those native, those local rules and putting, meshing those two together, so that what we show is a representation of what is in the practice management system to be viewed by a scheduling coordinator. So, our goal is accuracy. That's our ultimate goal, is to accurately display those openings, so that when a patient looks at it, they are seeing a representation of what is within the practice management system. And then when they make their selection, it is accurately transmitted back into the practice management system, into the exact right spot. And it is a fully booked appointment at that point. And once folks give us the chance to show them that, and show them that we've taken those things into account for them, and that we're not just putting, 10-minute crowns on Friday afternoon at 4:30. Once they see that's there, then they start to get an understanding of the depth of the system. It's the people that tend to have the most problems understanding that are the ones that never let us show them the way that the system actually functions, and they make assumptions up front based on their history, as opposed to giving themselves the opportunity to understand what's happening.
Right. Yeah, I've gone through the onboarding process several times, and The onboarding process is very simple. It's 20 minutes here, wait a couple days, 20 or 30 minutes on the back end, boom, you're up. So I have to believe that once you do the initial interviews and you're interviewing that scheduling coordinator who has all those tips and tricks in her head, you guys have to go off and program the platforms accordingly, come back, legitimize what you programmed. In other words, just make sure what you did was exactly the way it's supposed to be. Take them live, and once they're live, do you see them making tweaks along the way? I mean, I do. With our concierge customers, I see them, and most of the time the tweaks they are making is actually, like you said, they get used to it, and then they start to open it up.
Correct.
Is that what you see?
Yeah, 100%. So the general process is we'll do the initial install, and then we schedule a what we call a training session, but it's really more of a verification session.
Right.
Usually the following day or within 48 hours. And if any changes are made kind of in that verification session, it's usually because they forgot one rule that was in their head that they didn't tell us about, or something small like that. But the last step in that process is literally to look at what we show is available right next to their schedule open.
Right.
And they look at our system and say, okay, we show that there is a new patient appointment available in chair 2 at 10 p.m. on Tuesday. And then they go look in their schedule to make sure that that's accurate.
Right. So
then they'll go look and say, it's a verification process of what we have in our system matches what they have in their system. And that's the final step before it goes live, is to make sure. And then if there's anything that is not matching up exactly the way they want it, we make those adjustments right there on the fly so that they are accurate before we ever go live.
Yeah,
so,
we have go ahead.
No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say we have some installs now that are a couple, 2 or 3 months having gone live, and they're starting to get the itch. Hey, Mark, you guys are doing Facebook PPC campaigns for us. Let's, create a landing page with the scheduling widget and, let's put it on my Facebook page. And I mean, it's starting to spread, just like electronic claims. You had one doctor who said, guys, and gals, you're missing the boat. This is not scary. This is a good thing.
Right.
Right. Now, all of a sudden, not really all of a sudden, but, now, an overnight success. After 4 years, you're starting to get people who say, wait a second, this is a real deal. This works.
Yeah.
And it's attitude to the schedule. That's the bottom line. You're not, from a marketing standpoint, my whole reason for reaching back out to you after I told you were crazy, my whole point for reaching back out to you was to solve my problem. My problem was dentists who are our clients were spending money on advertising and then not answering their phone 20% of the time. And right. I had no logical, reasonable, very affordable way to solve that problem. So when I was reaching back out, I should say, I was coming at it from my own, my own selfish business desires. You don't know what it's like to get a report once a month on the first. I hate the first of every month because I get the reports from the call tracking and I see thousands of phone calls and I sort it by call length, and I know damn well every one of them under 40 seconds is a voicemail. I mean, I know it is, and I look and I see it's almost 20% of the total call volume. That's why I originally, now that we've had it installed, I know, I can see them. I'm getting the notifications the doctors are getting, and I know most of them actually are new patients. Now, you said to me in a conversation a little while back that your platform-wide 600 offices, what percent are new?
If you take an aggregate, you're looking at just around a little over 70%.
Okay, so 70%. I don't think ours are 70. It's probably more like 50-50, but still, who cares? Who cares if it's one? I mean, really, one is better than none, right? Two is better than one. So it's 70% platform wide. That's additive to the schedule.
Well, let me make a couple of quick points on that. And one of the reasons why it's 70% is because we don't tell the offices what they need to list online to be scheduled. They tell us what they want to make available.
Right.
So we have some of our offices, particularly one client that's exceedingly high volume, that only does new patients.
Oh, so they don't even let established patients book online.
Correct, which I think is a mistake because they miss a ton of calls, but it's their business, not mine.
Right.
And it's they run their own business. So we set things up according to their wishes, which actually kind of goes back, it goes back to a point you made a minute ago, which is that as your clients have become more comfortable, they have added new things. And that's very common. It's that our offices will come on if they have any sort of hesitation, even after saying yes, they want the service. They'll come on and they'll only put new patients and new patient emergencies and that sort of stuff. And then after they see it working in 60, 90 days, then they'll come back and they'll open up a few more.
Free Invisalign consults, right? Yeah,
exactly.
Complimentary implant consults, right? Here they come, right?
Right. And I mean, once they understand that the rules that we have in place can control where the appointments are being shown and then ultimately scheduled,
right?
They can assign those same kinds of rules to anything. And so once they become comfortable with that, then they really spread that out. So it's not uncommon at all for somebody to have, only 3 to 5 appointment types that they have online to start with. And then you look back 6 months later and they've got 20.
Sure.
And so that's, from a comfort perspective. But again, we're not here to tell people how to run their business. It's our jobs to augment the ways for those patients to be able to schedule in their system. And you've mentioned a few times, and something to give some stats to here is, you've mentioned that more patients will be able, will interact with the office and schedule. And so we asked just over 10,000 patients over the course of about 2 months, would they have called the office or would they have scheduled at that office had online scheduling not been available, or would they have just not done anything? Would they have delayed? What would they have done? And of those, we got about 1,200 responses total. Of the ones that were new patients, 30.1% of those patients said they would not have scheduled if online scheduling was not available for them.
Right. And that's, from a marketing standpoint, that's our job or marketing company standpoint. If we have a client, the client should absolutely 100% expect his or her marketing company to understand all these technologies, which ones actually work, which ones don't work, what benefits do they provide, at what cost, and how much is this going to cost against my marketing budget. Their marketing company should be able to tell them, because there's a million things dentists can do with their money. This is one of the ones where you go, that's a no-brainer, just like electronic insurance claims. That's why I keep bringing it back up. This is a total statistical no-brainer for a dental office, yet you can sense probably the frustration in where we're getting the early adopters. There's lots of early adopters who are coming out of the woodwork now going, I want to try it. I want to try it. I want to, that's great. I can't wait till it goes mainstream. So if you're on the edge about this and you're listening to this podcast, imagine being the first dentist in your market with a website, or being the first dentist in your market to provide same-day dentistry, or the first dentist in your market to do 24/7, 365 on the telephone even. Now you're going to be 24/7, 365 online. There's a million reasons to do this. The only one that I always come back to is it is absolutely, positively additive to the schedule.
It is. And I will tell you this, when we first started reaching out to people a little over 18 months ago, I heard so many clicks and everything else just from people thinking we were nuts and everything. But in the last, 4 to 6 months, we're having a lot more substantial conversations.
Sure.
The number of people that are reaching out to us as opposed to us reaching out to them has tripled. The number of large organizations that are exploring this, we've had organizations representing more than 4,000 offices reach out to us in the last 30 days.
Right.
And so it's starting to, as people are looking for ways to provide their patients with fewer speed bumps
Yep.
to scheduling.
Yep.
They are starting to recognize that this is one of those places that for, a very small investment of capital and time, they can have a significant impact on their business, without changing their business philosophy in any way, shape, or form. It's not as if they're going to a brand new practice management system that's going to be tens of thousands of dollars and retrain their whole staff and everything else to make a difference, or they're not hiring a consultant firm that's going to be a 5-year plan and completely change the way that they do their business.
Right.
This is a very low impact from a cost and time standpoint, but something they can implement to really make changes at their provider level. Totally
agree. That. I agree. Other than,
yep.
I wanted everybody to hear. You know what, Keith? We'll bring you back. We're going to call this Interview with Keith English Part 1, and we'll have a Part 2 in a month or two. We'll bring it back and follow up with some more of the unique ways that we're seeing our customers, your customers on the platform, our customers on Concierge, how we see the patients interacting. Like, I'm seeing patients making appointments at 4:30 in the afternoon on Sunday, Super Bowl Sunday. That's insane.
Yeah.
That is totally insane. Okay. But you can just picture it all boils down to mom. Mom is probably the busiest human being on the planet. And if you can make her life that much easier and she can just log in and schedule for her whole family, her 2 kids and her husband, he's not going to make his own appointment. Come on, let's face it. So
unless he cracks a tooth, that's the first time he's doing it. Yeah, that's it. Right. Unless it's an emergency,
yep.
And then yes, and he will. And I can say this because I would do the same thing. I will whine and moan until my appointment. I want the first thing that's available, and I want it now.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. So anyway, thank you very much for your time, Keith. It was great to chat with you again and introduce you to our concierge customers and even just dentistry in general. Doctors, if you're out there and at a trade show or at the ADA show, maybe in October, I know Keith and I will both be there. Stop by, shake our hands, ask us questions.
Glad to spend a little time here, and whatever other questions people have, we're happy to answer, and we'll keep making sure that what we're doing keeps refining everything, and we've got new stuff coming out too, so we'll keep you in the loop on all that.
Awesome. Thanks, Keith.
Thank you.
We hope you've enjoyed our podcast today. You can find more podcasts on our YouTube channel, on Stitcher, and iTunes. Also on our websites, dentalwebcontent.com and new